Welcome back to Readers That Write. We've got a really fun episode today reviewing Cthonia Reckoning. It is a collection of short stories in the Horus Heresy, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting one of the authors at LTUE, and I finally had a chance to read this, so I figured I want to definitely review it. Michael Hospital was a fantastic person. He was actually the Toastmaster at that convention, so I got to talk with him for a little while, and he spent the entire time at the conference wearing shirts that represented different Warhammer 40k factions that he had written, and it was absolutely fantastic. I honestly hope to have the opportunity to do a lot of what he's done in the Black Library as an author, and his story did not disappoint in Cthonia Reckoning. But maybe let's talk about what Cthonia Reckoning is and why it's important to the entire heresy. This is one of the books that's quite a bit newer than some of the heresy and is a little bit outside of the scope because it doesn't tie directly into the Horus Heresy timeline. There are several small branch stories like that that kind of break away from the big situation going on, and instead of telling a major plot point in the Heresy story arc, it gives us a view of what else is going on, which is fantastic. I have zero problem with that. These books are some of my favorite books in the Heresy so far. And we'll talk about more of those as I have a chance to do some more book reviews, if this is something you guys are enjoying. And I really hope that you guys will give these short story anthologies a chance. In the last several years, I've actually become big into writing short fiction. It was a major struggle for me, and it's not an easy process. A lot of people seem to think that short fiction equals a fast story. And for someone who has a lot of experience writing short fiction, it can be pretty fast. But having to figure that out took me years and about a half dozen terrible stories to figure out how to write a good story arc while not following the normal novel rules, because you can't do that in short fiction. And Cthonia Reckoning has several zingers in it. Cthonia Reckoning is about a group of the Sons of Horus who, instead of going to Terra, decide to go and try and recapture their homeworld after the Imperial Fist sees it. Cthonia is the homeworld of Horus and his legion, and during the rebellion, a group of Imperial Fists are sent to take it. And they do. Because Horus is far away, as are his sons, so there's no one there to really protect it from the Imperial Fists. Plus, most of the population isn't even aware that there's a heresy going on, just like a lot of the galaxy. And the Imperial Fists are able to take it, and they're using it to recruit to build their numbers so that they can challenge Horus as well. And a group of Sons of Horus, I keep wanting to call them Luna Wolves, even though I'm deep into the heresy and they've been called Sons of Horus for a long time. The Luna Wolves for the first couple of books were actually probably my favorite Space Marine Legion ever, with the exception of maybe the 5th Legion, my White Scars. But in the end, it comes to a fight. It comes to a knockdown, drag-out fight, and you get the story from the second the Sons of Horus arrive to the second a group of Dark Angels comes to take on the Sons of Horus as well, thinking the Imperial Fists have died. They get pushed further and further into the Imperial Fist gets pushed further and further into caverns that lie in Cthonia, because it's basically a mined out world, a mined out dead world that is consumed basically by gangs that are there just trying to survive. And because of this, it ends in a massive brawl, which is kind of the entire point of these stories. They all tie together extremely well, telling us different points of view throughout this fight, from a ship's captain in the space battle that leads into the landing on Cthonia, to a couple civilians that are in the middle of it, There's a couple different stories from the Take of the Imperial Fists, or the Sons of Horus. There's one story that flips back and forth. It's fantastic. And you get to see more of what the heresy is like for everyone else. A lot of the Horus Heresy stories are told from the perspective of either Primarch or one of their senior captains, which is great for telling the overarching plot, but you're often left wondering what it's like for the average person, or even just the average Space Marine. And you don't tend to get a lot of those stories. You get a few point of view side stories about that, but most of the time you don't get an entire story from the perspective of an Imperial Guardsman, a civilian, an apothecary, or anyone like that. And it's fantastic. Those are actually some of my favorite stories in all of Warhammer, are the average person's POV. I think that's why Gaunt's Ghost is one of my favorite book series so far. But there are also some very critical stories to understanding how Cthonia became what Cthonia is in 40k. Cthonia is the world that houses Necromunda. Necromunda is a world that is, or a city that is just messed up. It's got so many problems and is actually so messed up that there's actually a side game called Necromunda, played in Necromunda, that has so much going on. It's riddled with chaos, radiation, and all of these problems. And this story really kind of tells you what happened and why it went down that path. In my opinion, there's 3 key stories that are vital for you to understand this whole process. I think almost all of the stories in this anthology are important to the book as a whole and the story arc as a whole. But To the Last, Sons of Cthonia, and the Postulant are probably the 3 most important stories. To the Last of Us gives you a good introduction to the fight. Sons of Cthonia gives you the introduction to what it's like as a Son of Horus landing, and the Postulant is the arrival of the Dark Angels. And all 3 of these stories are some of my absolute favorites in this book so far, and are keys to what the story actually is. It's really interesting to see how many different themes are tied into these stories. You get to see an independent personality just trying to scrape out a living, who goes up against a word bearer and actually manages to win. You see the strength and brotherhood of the Imperial Fists working hard to try and fortify locations to slow down the Sons of Horus. You see the Dark Angels at probably their worst. The Dark Angels are very much the wrath of the Emperor. It's kind of what their legion does as a whole. And you get to see this really, really well encapsulated in a very short story, actually. And that's the Postulant. You have so many other really, really cool themes and little glimpses into the world building. They give you a lot more than that length of story normally would, which is why I absolutely love this. The other fun part that I really enjoy when it comes to short story anthologies is that you get to see a lot of different writing styles lumped into one. It goes at a very good clip, so you can burn through this pretty fast. For a Horus Heresy book, it's pretty short because it is a short story anthology, and you can break it up if you want and just do one story at a time as well. There's a lot you can gain from all of this and really enjoy it. So that is my summary of Cthonia's Reckoning. it is an absolute read and recommendation for me personally. And if you are in the Horus Heresy, when you reach about that halfway point, maybe a little bit further, I don't think I've actually reached the point where this takes place, because at least where I'm at, Horus hasn't started his push to Terra yet. And this happens while Horus is headed to Terra. So, or when he's calling all of his forces to Terra. So, when you reach the point where Horus is actually taking the fight to the Emperor, that would be a great time to pick this up. It's a very quick read, like I said, and it has a lot of really cool stories that will get you super excited for the actual battle, the Siege of Terra. So, if you've read this, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought and what things surprised you. There's a lot of really, really cool things that I was surprised the Imperial Fists would be willing to do. It compromises a lot of their morals and the facade they try and put on about being the very upright and upstanding legion that they are. The level the Dark Angels went to surprised me as well. With the Dread Talents, I didn't think they would take it that far. Dark Angels have been one of my favorite parts of the Heresy so far, and seeing them in that light surprised me, but I did very much enjoy it. And then seeing the Sons of Horus being the Sons of Horus, and honestly fighting a lot more like the Luna Wolves than they do the Sons of Horus on Isfan, was really, really cool for me as well. So I absolutely recommend it, and I think you guys will love it. So make sure you check it out, and let me know if there's any other of these side stories inside the Horus Heresy that don't typically get included in the actual series themselves. And I will definitely be checking those out. And stay tuned for more book reviews coming up. I try and do them every couple weeks until we get caught up on all of the Heresy books that I've read so far. And I hope you guys are liking them. Have a good time.